Mr. President.
The distinguished senator from Massachusetts.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, the Senate's advise and consent role is one of our most important duties as senators. And the Secretary of State is one of the most important nominations which we will consider. The Secretary of State is America's chief diplomat, and he should project America's values to the world. Yesterday, I joined with Senator Schumer in calling for a delay on Mr. Tillerson's vote on the Senate floor until we hear from him about President Trump's Muslim ban. Turning away refugees based on their nationality and religion is un-American, it is illegal, and it is immoral. And this Muslim ban is propaganda for ISIS. It is a recruiting gift to terrorist groups around the world and in our own country. It will increase the risk of harm to Americans everywhere, including here at home. Donald Trump is sending a message to Muslims around the world that they are all suspects. This has a profound implication for our ability to work with governments in the Middle East in the fight against terrorism. One of the countries named in this executive order is Iraq, our closest ally in the fight against ISIS. Conflict and war is forcing millions around the world from their homeland. Donald Trump's Muslim ban directly undermines our historic commitment to international cooperation and international refugee aid. That is why world leaders have joined the chorus of millions of Americans who do not support the Muslim ban. America has always been a beacon to those fleeing persecution and violence. We are a refuge to those seeking a better life. The poetic inscription at the base of the Statue of Liberty does not say, "Send back your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free." As our top diplomat, Mr. Tillerson will be in a position to work directly with the nations named in this executive order. And we need to hear how he believes it will impact our standing around the world. With respect to Mr. Tillerson's nomination, I have very serious concerns. Rex Tillerson could have enjoyed his retirement after spending more than 40 years at ExxonMobil. Instead, he answered the call to enter public service, and I commend him for that. His record at ExxonMobil is one which clearly has received accolades. He did a good job for ExxonMobil. He is highly respected in the oil industry. But public service requires the public's trust, and Mr. Tillerson will not have that trust unless he agrees to recuse himself from participating in decisions that would affect ExxonMobil for the entirety of his term. So far, he has refused to do so. Our laws require federal officials to recuse themselves when a reasonable person could question their impartiality. Before President Trump nominated him to be Secretary of State, Mr. Tillerson worked for one company, ExxonMobil, for virtually his entire adult life. And as he rose to become a senior manager and then CEO, Mr. Tillerson was personally involved in getting lucrative oil deals in a number of countries, including Russia. In fact, during Mr. Tillerson's time as CEO of ExxonMobil, the company expanded its drilling rights in Russia to 63 million acres. Now, that is an area the size of Wyoming and nearly 5 times the size of Exxon's holdings in the United States. But Mr. Tillerson didn't just deepen the relationship between his company and Russia. He also tried to protect that relationship by speaking out against sanctions on Russia. As a reward for personally cementing Exxon's relationship with Russia, President Vladimir Putin awarded Mr. Tillerson the Russian Order of Friendship. The stakes with U.S.-Russia relations could not be higher. Russia has invaded the Ukraine, annexed Crimea, bombed innocent civilians in Aleppo, and attacked our elections with cyber weapons. Our next Secretary of State will be negotiating with Russia on some of the most critical foreign policy issues facing the world. But Mr. Tillerson's decades-long history at ExxonMobil and Exxon's vast holdings in Russia clearly create a conflict of interest. How can the American people be sure that Mr. Tillerson will be objective when he participates in matters relating to sanctions on Russia, or in any matters that could affect Exxon in the dozens of other countries around the world where Exxon operates? As the top ethics lawyers for Presidents Bush and Obama have said, these conflicts could require Mr. Tillerson to recuse himself from any matters affecting ExxonMobil, irrespective of his financial divestitures. When I asked Mr. Tillerson during his confirmation hearing whether he would commit to recuse himself without waiver or exception from matters affecting Exxon for the duration of his tenure as Secretary of State, Mr. Tillerson refused. That is unacceptable. The American people and the national security of the United States demand a Secretary of State whose impartiality is unambiguous. Make no mistake, the stockholders of ExxonMobil would have serious questions about hiring the leader of the Sierra Club to be the new CEO of Exxon. We, too, should have questions about hiring ExxonMobil's former CEO to be America's chief diplomat. If he agreed to recuse himself, Mr. Tillerson would be following a tradition that is longstanding and bipartisan. Secretary of State James Baker recused himself from participating in any matter that could affect the price of oil and gas. Treasury Secretary Hank Paulson promised not to participate in any matter where Goldman Sachs was a party. And all of President Obama's appointees recused themselves from any matters related to their former employers or clients. Mr. Tillerson's refusal to follow their example will call into question his impartiality, and it could undermine his effectiveness as Secretary. During his confirmation hearing, Mr. Tillerson displayed an alarming lack of understanding of oil's role in geopolitics, clearly a consequence of having worked solely at Exxon that disqualifies him from being Secretary of State. When I questioned him, Mr. Tillerson told me that he never has supported United States energy independence. He told me that he didn't agree that reducing America's demand for oil and our reliance on foreign oil imported from the Middle East would strengthen our negotiating position with oil-producing nations. We as a nation still import 5 million barrels of oil every single day into the United States. 3 million of those barrels a day come from OPEC members like Saudi Arabia and Iraq and Nigeria. And ExxonMobil has energy interests in each one of those countries. And we're still exporting our own young men and women in uniform overseas to defend those energy interests every single day. Mr. Tillerson is looking at the world through oil-coated glasses. He may have gotten rid of Exxon's stock, but he hasn't gotten rid of Exxon's mindset. And Mr. Tillerson's answers to questions about climate change, the global generational challenge of our time, are a cause for extreme concern. Although he recognized climate change is real and human activities influenced it, he would not commit to continuing action on it as a foreign policy priority. Throughout his hearing, Mr. Tillerson would only say that he wanted to keep a seat at the table of climate negotiations. The United States needs to have more than a seat at the table. We need to be at the head of the table. In December 2015, 150 heads of state gathered in support of finalizing the Paris Climate Accord. It represents a global solution to the problem of global warming in which all countries commit to doing their fair share. But instead of strengthening this historic accord, Mr. Tillerson indicated that all treaties and agreements to which the United States is a party would be up for review by President Trump. America needs a Secretary of State who will lead the world to fully realize the clean energy revolution, that will help us avoid the catastrophic impacts of climate change while creating millions of American jobs. To abandon the Paris Climate Accord would be to abandon our clean energy future. We cannot roll back years of progress, cutting dangerous carbon emissions or destroying clean and deploying clean energy solutions. For 41 years, Rex Tillerson's worldview has been to advance the interests of one place and one place only, ExxonMobil. Confirming Mr. Tillerson as Secretary of State would be turning over the keys of U.S. foreign policy to big oil. Big oil's interests are not America's interests. If Mr. Tillerson were to negotiate with Russia and President Putin, whose interests will he represent? Those of big oil or those of the American people? I still do not have satisfactory answers to that critical question. For those reasons, Mr. President, I cannot vote for his confirmation, and I thank you for allowing me to speak at this time on the Senate floor, and I yield to the senator from Connecticut, Senator Murphy.